Welcome to part 3 of sewing a t-shirt. In this video, we're going to learn how to attach the neckband to your t-shirt. When you're done, your t-shirt will look like this. I've used a serger on my seam, but you can also do this on a regular sewing machine. Today, I have my assistant Clementine, who will probably be in all of my shots. If this is the first video you're landing on, you can go back to the first video to learn how to cut out your pieces, and the second video covers how to sew your shirt together at the basic seams. We're going to start by folding our neckband with the right sides together. For a refresher, the right side has these little V shapes and vertical lines running up and down the fabric. The wrong side looks kind of like it has little nubs on it. And then we're going to pin the short edge. You want to make sure the fabric is lined up along the edge. And then we're just going to sew this. Remember to check your pattern for the seam allowance. After sewing, the next step is to open this out and press your seam. On a serger, you'll just press the seam to one side. If you used a regular sewing machine, you can press your seam allowance flat. After pressing the seam, you're going to fold your neckband in half and line up the edges. Then you're going to press all the way around. Your neckband should look like this now. The wrong sides should be pressed together. Now you might have noticed that your neckband is actually shorter than the opening of your shirt, and that's actually on purpose so that it fits properly. If the neckband was the same size as the opening, it might gape open when you're wearing it. To get the neckband to fit into the shirt properly, we're going to mark with pins on 4 places around the neckband and the shirt. Then we're going to line up the pins. To do this, I start by folding at the seam and folding my piece in half. I'm then going to put a pin in the fold. This is just going to be used to line up the neckband in the shirt. After pinning halfway, open it out and line up the pin with the seam. You're then going to pin in both of these folds. Your neckband now has 4 markers around it, using the seam as one of the markers. We're going to repeat this on your shirt. On the shirt, I like to find the exact middle of the back and use that to line up the seam of the neckband. To do that, I'm going to fold the shirt in half using the shoulders as my starting places. Once I find the center of the back, I'm going to pin it. Using this pin as my new starting place, I'm going to fold the shirt in half like this. You want to make sure that your edges are lined up on the back and on the front. You're then going to put a pin in the front of the shirt. This marks the halfway point. Using the pins in the back and the front as guides, we're now going to fold the neck opening again. This time, line up the 2 pins together. These will be the center. To place the other pins, fold it in half like this with the edges lined up, then place a pin in this spot. You'll repeat this on the other side. You should now have 4 pins in your neck opening. You'll probably notice that the pins on the 2 sides are not lined up with your shoulder seam. That's because the front of the neck usually scoops lower than the back. Now we're going to line up the pins we put in our neckband with the pins on the neck opening. I like to use quilting clips because they hold everything really securely. Start by finding the seam on your neckband and lining this up with the back of your shirt. Once you have the seam and the pin aligned, make sure the edges of the fabric are lined up. You want the neckband to be on the outside of the shirt. Holding the 2 fabrics together, you can remove the pin and put a quilt clip in place. If you just have pins, you can put in a pin instead. You want both layers of the neckband and the shirt to be lined up. Next, you're going to line up the remaining pins in the same way. You should now have 4 clips or pins holding your neckband in place. The next thing we're going to do is pin between these markers. I like to start in the middle and then place 2 clips or pins on the other side. On most shirts, the neckband is smaller than the opening, so you're going to have to stretch the neckband in order to get it to fit. Your neckband should now be pinned or clipped all the way around. I like to go around and double check that the fabric is lined up along the whole edge and that none of it is folded underneath a pin or a clip. Next, we're going to sew all the way around the neckband with a serger or sewing machine. I like to start at the seam and work my way around. When attaching your neckband, remember to keep the seam allowance in mind. On a serger, I usually do the narrowest seam allowance that I can, lining my seams up with the edge of this foot. But your instructions for your pattern might be different. When using a serger, I usually have trouble getting far enough into the fabric when I'm starting, so I always sew over this when I come back around, and that creates a nice smooth line. I recommend going really slowly as you sew this. You want to make sure that your shirt body is always lined up with the edge of your neckband. If the body were to slip underneath, it's really hard to fix it and make it look right. Depending on how tight your neckband is, you may need to stretch as you're sewing, and that's perfectly fine. Now that I'm coming up to where I started, I'm going to go back over these stitches and chain off to the side. Your neckband should now look like this. The last step is to press your seam towards the body of the shirt. After this step, your shirt now has a really nice looking neckband. In the next video, we're going to learn how to hem your shirt, which is the final touch.